evening, everyone. Welcome. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It is 6:03 p.m. Let's proceed with the roll call, starting from my right.
Carlos Margo, present.
Anita Chavez, present.
Alisa Peña, present.
Rosalba Hernandez, present.
Celso Gomez Jr., present.
I see we have quorum. We do have a board member that's not here. She is on her way, and we will indicate what time she gets here when she does arrive. Next on the agenda, if I could have everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move into special recognitions. I'm going to ask Board Member Rosalba Hernandez and myself to make our way to the front. Blanca, you can proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dr. Sorensen, and community. My name is Blanca Cantu. I'm the Public Relations and Communications Coordinator, and I will be facilitating our recognitions for tonight. Our first recognition is recognition of Irene Garcia Middle School One Act Play students. This recognition will be presented by Mr. Abel Zamora, UIO Coordinator.
Good evening. Tonight we'll be recognizing Garcia Middle School One Act Play students through their hard work, dedication, Saturday and holiday practices. Garcia Middle School placed first at the Middle School District One Act Play Contest. Tonight we have some of the actors from the play Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane with us. First up, we've got Anaya Hernandez. Next, we have Jewel de la Garza. Abelardo de Gávez. Roel Villalón. Natalia Suárez. Alejandro Molina. Escaré Ríos. Their One Act Play director, Mr. Jesus R. Cantu. And their principal, Ms. Arteaga.
Move down a little bit.
Congratulations. Will the parents of our UIL students please stand and be recognized? Thank you. Our next recognition is recognition of state qualifiers Special Olympics track and field athletes from La Jolla High School, Juarez Lincoln High School, and Palmview High School. This recognition will be presented by our athletics director, Mr. Victor Garza.
Good afternoon, Dr. Sorensen, Mr. President, board members, administration, community. It gives me great pleasure today to bring up before you the champions of champions, our state qualifying Special Olympians. Joining us today from La Jolla High School, we have Carolina Campos, who has participated She was the silver medalist in the baseball throw, as she is proudly showcasing her medal. Next, we have Dalisa Davila. Not a problem. Gonzalo Gonzalez. Joel Mendoza. This young lady had 4 gold medals. Adriana Munoz. Jesus Munoz. Christopher Sanchez. Mariano Sanchez. Alec Cerrato. Victoria Villarreal. Our Mighty Coyote Special Olympians are coached by head coach, Coach Edna Garcia, Coach Alex Ramos, Coach Sandra Chavez, Coach Alba Herrera, and Coach Gonzalo Gonzalez. These are your Mighty Coyote State participants at State Special Olympics Track and Field.
Congratulations.
Right now, if we have any parents of the Mighty Coyotes, can you please stand up and be recognized, parents? Thank you for your support, parents. Thank you. Thank you, Mighty Coyotes. Next, we have our Mighty Huskies from Juarez, Lincoln. First, we have Ms. Giselle Lopez. Alfonso Trejo. Eduardo Beliz. Abigail Villarreal. Armando Vázquez. Head coach for the Mighty Huskies is Ms. San Juanita Guajardo. And Coach Sergio Espinosa. I know we do have our principal from Juarez, Lincoln, Mr. Joe Peña. If the parents of the Mighty Huskies are here, could you please stand up? Thank you, parents, for your support. Thank you. Next, we have our Mighty Lobos from Palm View, America. Ms. Naylene Duran. Mr. Gabriel Villarreal.
Don't touch his back.
Giovanni Ponce. Head coach is Coach Michelle Contreras. Also coach San Juanita Peña. Principal from Palmview High School, Mr. Leo Perez. Will the parents of the Mighty Lobos, if you're present, can you please stand up? Thank you, parents, for your support. Thank you. Next, we have our Mighty baseball team from La Jolla High School, our Mighty Coyotes. As we know, they were regional semifinalists. This is the third year in a row that La Jolla ISD represents at this level. Great, exciting games, as we know, especially that 12, 13 inning game all the way past midnight. And the boys of summer, as well as our girls of summer, did an excellent job for us. So we want to thank both groups for their performances and participation. And we start off with Alfonso Balboa, Rudy Flores, Roel Garcia, Ezequiel Hernández, Iván Marrón, Hunter Morales, Isaac Sayavedra, Santiago Tijerina, Lucas Zambrano, Rolando Solís, Homer Munoz. Head coach of our Mighty Coyotes are Coach Mario Flores, Coach Guadalupe Barrera, Coach Anthony Luna, and they are seeing their trophy for the first time this afternoon as it just arrived, displaying actually their 3 championships and their final level of participation.
Big smile over here.
You ain't got the money.
Congratulations.
Will the parents of the Mighty Coyotes please stand up and be recognized? Thank you. I want to thank all the parents for their support, participation and support throughout the seasons, throughout the years. Thank you. And with that, Madam Superintendent, concludes our athletic recognitions.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to all our recognition recipients. Congratulations to all the coaches, their teachers, and all of the support that they give the parents. Thank you so much for ensuring that our students shine bright. Board President, this concludes our recognitions for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How proud we were of our young men and women. So congratulations again to everyone. Next on the agenda is our public comment. As I'm going to remind everyone, if you are providing a public comment, you do have 3 minutes. Our Vice President, Anita Chavez, will indicate to you at the end of 3 minutes that your time is up. And of course, our Secretary, Alyssa Peña, will go ahead and announce who's going to be speaking. So, Ms. Peña?
Yes, today we have 7 speakers, and first up we'll have Ms. Brenda Lee Annalise, if you can make your, Salinas, sorry. If you can please make your way to the podium.
Did someone ask a question? I'm sorry.
I think it's everybody.
Excuse me? Okay, sure. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Salinas.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready. So greetings, esteemed Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees, Dr. Sorensen, and respected community members. I'm Brenda Lee Salinas, serving as the president of the La Jolla FT, and tonight I stand before you to urgently address the critical issue of our dedicated nurse assistants, whose roles are pivotal in maintaining our students and staff health and safety. And I'm sorry, I do apologize, in your folder that I'm going to present to you all, so you will find a letter from our nurses and nurse assistants, which I will summarize due to time constraint. It talks about emphasis on the critical role of students and staff health and safety of LJISD, particularly considering the increased health issues and drug abuse among children in the Rio Grande Valley. It is imperative to consider the ramifications of removing nurse assistants positions for the 24-25 school year. The decision to eliminate nurse assistants in the 22-23 academic year significantly impacted medical support and emergency response times, posing major challenges for nurses, students, and the community. These positions are indispensable for students' health and safety and must be retained without question. The difficulties school nurses encounter in handling emergencies and the potential risk of having only one nurse without nurse assistance, the considerable impact of removing nurse assistance on the perception of safety among our valued staff, students, and parents, and the importance of students' health on attendance, learning, closing educational gaps, and the insufficient nurse to student ratio in addressing health conditions and emergencies. The urgency to reinstate nurse assistance cannot be overstated. It is a matter of importance for the safety of our well-being of our esteemed students and staff at La Jolla ISD. Any delay in this decision only escalates the potential risk involved, which we cannot afford to ignore. Your folder that you received also contains a copy of the Restore Nurse Assistant Position Petition by La Jolla FT, ensure students' health and safety. There are 23,000 plus reasons why 1,601 in community members, school employees, family and friends, etc., that signed our petition. These 23,000 plus reasons are precious jewels. Our La Jolla ISD students, our supporters. Their support is not just an indication of their concern, but a reflection of the collective community's shared commitment to students' health and safety. And we thank each one that signed this petition. 1,061, correction.
Excuse me, but your 3 minutes have expired. Ms. Salinas.
Each signature is unwavering testament to the unified voice championing this cause. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. Thank you.
And Dr. Sorensen, thank you. Also, Board of Trustees, we thank you. And Dr. Sorensen, I will never stop thanking you for everything that you've done, for our district, your transparency, and I'm not going to get tired. La Jolla FT is not going to get tired as far as thanking you. So.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas.
To all of you. Thank you.
And all of you for joining her. Thank you. Next to speak, Ms. Peña.
Daniela Rios.
Good afternoon. I am a teacher here at La Jolla, but today I stand before you as a concerned parent. If I get emotional, I'm sorry about that. I am a parent of an autistic ADHD child who has a heart condition and is prone to seizures. It worries me to know that there's not enough help in the school. I'm worried that without nurse assistants, my child or any of the other 90 medical, those children with medical condition at our campus, 23 with scheduled medications, or those 35 that have as-needed medication, or like she mentioned, those 23,000 other kids in La Jolla will not get the necessary help. Our campus is one of the few that has the special education unit and an early child special education unit, so it does tell you the need for additional help. If for some reason our nurse is out, which she's human being, I don't think anyone will be able to replace what she does, or they do. You can send anyone to substitute, but there will be no one who will be able to do this than those who know the school and the kids by heart. My child calls them my nurse. She developed this bond with them where they have helped her, and they open the clinic after school when it's already closed, because that's them. They don't care what time it is or who they go to. I know that my child, being autistic, developed this bond, so I don't know how else this can be replaced. As nurse assistants, they offer more support than what the job description requires, from calling the students to the classroom, come take your meds, to reminding parents before their medication is over, so there's not an interruption in their learning. Not only that, but they also pull morning, lunch, and after school duty every single day. And they do not take this role lightly, but rather one that they embrace wholeheartedly. Every interaction is infused with passion and purpose. My child belongs to Rio Grande City ISD, but I chose to bring her to La Jolla because I know what La Jolla has to offer. When I stand in front of the classroom, I give my heart out because that's what I do, and I'm asking you that you do the same for our children and their needs, because they deserve nothing but the best. They're not just names to remember or faces in a crowd. They will be our future, and they deserve nothing but the best. Let us approach every decision, every action, and with the well-being and the success of our children in the forefront of our minds. For it is through the unwavering dedication and genuine care that we truly will make a difference in their life. Thank you for your continued commitment and excellence, and may we always give our betterment for our students and our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Secretary Peña?
Next we have Yesenia Ruiz.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was a student here at La Jolla since I was very little. So I wanted to come here and speak about the importance of having nurse assistants in our campus. I speak personally from my own experience. I have dealt with our nurse assistant, which we have here, which we love. My kids love her. She has helped us, tremendously with my kids. I'm speaking for my kids today and for, the kids that we have at school. My kids have asthma. I have a little boy who I have sitting over there. He has congenital heart disease, which now he's in heart failure. My main concern was to take him to school. He can get sick from everything. But my nurses assured me that they were going to take care of him, especially Nurse Villalobos, which is the assistant that has been taking care of Leo, making sure he has his meds and everything. It's hard for me to, bring my child to the school and not have somebody besides the nurse help him out whenever he needs anything. Right now he's taking medications. He takes up to 7 medications a day. He was taking medications at school. They were very helpful with it, and it concerns me. Not only for my children, for the rest of the kids. Nurses are humans. They have to take a lunch. They might be sick. In our school particularly, our nurse was out for a couple of weeks, and she was in charge of helping out the kids. Sorry. They are a great access to any of our schools, as little as giving a Band-Aid or cough drop, to giving medications, even to things that can cause, life-threatening measures. They're always there for us. So I appreciate everything they do to us, everything they do for our kids, and I hope that, they continue to do, and they have the opportunity to continue to do whatever they've been doing till this day, which I know that our nurses in our school love to do, and they love to help our kids, and they're always there for us. So I thank you guys for everything that you've done for our district. I've been here for years, and I continue to have my kids because my kids do not pertain to La Jolla either, but I decided to bring them here to La Jolla because I know, what you guys can offer my kids. So thank you for everything. I appreciate the time for having us here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Next, Secretary Pena.
Diana Flores.
Sorry, this is the first time I've ever done this before. Y'all already pretty much know why we're here for. I'm here to voice for my son. He has asthma. He's on allergy shots weekly, long term. He's been getting shots for over 2 years now. And yes, nurse plus the nurse assistants are needed. Not just for my son, but for all the other children that have medical conditions and non-medical conditions. God forbid that something happens to my son or to any other. Because I'm not just going to stand by and do nothing. And I'm saying it to everybody in this room. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker.
Priscilla Lopez.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm sorry.
Ma'am, before you start, let me just go ahead and acknowledge that we had one of our board members that just showed up and just let you know that it is 6:29. Thank you. You may proceed, ma'am.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank all the nurses and the medical staff and the school. Recently, in December, my daughter, my oldest, my baby, was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic. It's a roller coaster having to deal with a newborn, being a single parent, and now this. I know in school, kids are going to be kids. They run, they jump, they fight. God forbid there's an emergency, across the other side of the school. A kid breaks his leg. It's normal. It happens. Accidents happen. But then what if my daughter has a hypoglycemic episode? Her blood sugar drops. The nurse is going to have to take a decision between which one to prioritize. Like I said, this is not just a simple scratch, a headache, a cough. It's a life or death situation in which my daughter can go into organ failure. Having to deal with this has been hard, but we have managed. Thank you to the nurses in school, the nurse assistants, the teachers, everybody that has helped and reached out to ask how she's doing. It's hard to think that I'm sending my daughter to school, knowing that they might or might not be somebody that can help her in case she doesn't feel okay. They call it the honeymoon phase in which she's at. She has lows, she has highs. We never know. And that's why there's always somebody there with her, checking her constantly. And she knows who to talk to. She'll tell me, she'll come home and be like, Mommy, Miss so-and-so helped me today. Mommy, Miss Villalobos said hi. Mommy, I gave my snacks to Miss Reina. But then there's only gonna be one of her, a pair of eyes, a pair of legs, a pair of hands, one heart, one brain to think for her in a situation like that. It's hard to even think that something might happen to my baby because they spend half of their lifetime in school. It's like another home, so there has to be somebody there for them. Not only my child, but the other children that have or might not have any medical conditions. It is important for them to have all the care they need, and not only for the kids, but also the staff. We happen to always have a headache here and there, or my throat feels itchy. What do? You look for the closest medical attention there is. But what if she's not there? She has an emergency of her own and she has to leave the campus, and there's nobody to replace her there. By the time we get somebody else to rush back to the campus, it might be a little too late. These are things that we have to consider when it comes to the safety of our kids and their well-being and their health.
Excuse me, ma'am, your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Secretary Peña, our next speaker.
Lisa Alonso.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Alonso and I am a student at La Joya ISD. I have needed the nurses countless times because of my medical conditions. My life depends on nurse assistants at school. Without the nurse assistants, my life would be impossible. Who are nurse assistants to you? Well, to me, they are my heroes since the first grade, and I will always hold a gratitude to them because without them, I would not be living another day. They make sure I am safe and well taken care of. From a paper cut to a nosebleed, they make sure to leave the office with a smile on your face. At the end of the day, I can count on my nurse assistants, not only for medical reasons, but also as my second mom. They created a special bond between a nurse assistant and a student to show that I will always have a productive day. Nurse assistants make sure to feel like I am someone without a medical condition. I feel that our special bond and trust have been destroyed since I have not received the correct medical treatment due to the district budgets. It's not about the budget, it's about saving lives and making my life depend on nurse assistants. Our parents trust on nurse assistants since they have a medical degree versus unlicensed personnel. The nurse assistants are my daily guardian angels as my day starts and ends at school. Now that I have seen what the nurse assistants do, it has grown a passion to pursue a degree in the medical field. Not only a passion, but someone who makes a difference in someone else's life. There has been times where the nurse is busy attending to other medical situations and not even an unlicensed personnel has been able to treat me medically until a nurse returns. That's why the district needs a nurse assistant in every school, especially when I have to administer medication and in the restroom and when I have to wait 20 minutes to get medical treatment. When I needed a nurse, the nurse was attending another student. The nurse has even stopped eating their lunch to attend me or other students. Bringing back our nurse assistants will help our kids feel medically and mentally safe and receive the right treatment at the appropriate time. If the nurse is not there, the nurse assistant will quickly assess me or any other student in need. My favorite nurses and nurse assistants are at La Joya ISD, and I hope it will stay this way. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Secretary Peña.
Vanessa Dillard.
Good evening. My name is Vanessa Dillard, and I am a parent and advocate for the students of La Joya ISD. On May 15, 2024, at 1:37 p.m., one of my daughter wasn't feeling well. She went to the office and was told by an employee the nurse is at another campus attending another student. 1:40, my daughter called me asking for help since the nurse was attending another student at another campus. 1:41 p.m., I called the school to radio the nurse and I hung up the phone. 1:42 p.m., I called my daughter to calm her down. 1:43, the employee called back asking so many questions. What's the student's name? What is the issue? Again, I told the employee to radio the nurse now. 1:49 p.m., the nurse called me to inform me what was wrong with my daughter. It took 12 long, devastating minutes. On May 16, 2024, I spoke to La Joya ISD Student Services and I informed them what had happened. And I quote them back on the response was, the district no longer will have a nurse assistant to save money. On May 17, 2024, I saw a student at the front office with a brown paper towel pinned to her nose with two office staff employees discussing what to do with the student. The office said, I don't know what to do, call the parent and for them to get picked up. Just like the office personnel attending in the office because there was no nurse, on May 20th, 24 at 11:35, my daughter goes to the nurse for medical treatment, but the RN is attending another medical situation. A teacher told her, just wait 5 minutes. 11:43, I called the school to radio the nurse. 11:55, the nurse attended my daughter. Now it took 20 long, devastating minutes to get help. Once again, it proves that someone that doesn't have a medical degree can attend our children. It takes seconds for a child to pass away if not treated correctly. A principal will discipline, a teacher will teach, but a nurse will care. At school, the children are safe with our nurse assistants as their second moms. Our nurse assistants are saving lives and making a difference in our children's life. To do what the nurse assistants do, no one else would do. Our nurse assistants are trained to think quickly and act accurately. Please keep our nurse and nurse assistants in our district. As the parent, I will continue to pray that our children are safe. Please keep it in your hearts to keep your loved ones safe with our nurse assistants, not your budget. If anyone can do the nurse's job, then why don't we all have a medical degree and a cape on our shoulders? Here is one of my binders, 1 out of 20, Phil, with my daughter's medical conditions. Step on down and fulfill the nurse's assistant's job. Your time starts now. This is the binder, 1 out of 20. Since the school district is doing away with the nurse assistants, if our children have an emergency and is attended by an unlicensed staff, then in the lawsuit we should include because La Joya ESD didn't allow a nurse assistant. Nurse and nurse assistants, don't forget the reason you became a nurse. Please bring back our nurse assistants who will be there to care if there are no nurse assistants. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillard. Next, Secretary Pena.
That concludes our speakers for tonight.
Thank you. That concludes all our speakers. Thank you to all those who provided remarks tonight. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, next item on the agenda is agenda item number 6. The Superintendent's report. Dr. Sorensen.
Yes. Thank you. So this is the beginning of our formal budget workshop. But before we get started on the actual presentation itself from myself and a couple essential team members, I would like to acknowledge a team of people who for the past couple of weeks have put in the hours, put in the time, put in the dedication, and really stepped up in a way that was essential for us to get to this point. So I'd like the team behind the computer, where's Ralph and Frank, right? But Beto and Aaron and Jaime Lopez, please stand. These are our budget and finance folks who just hit a home run every day. Not like getting this done, but every single day and night. So I just, want to thank you guys publicly. And Aaron and Frank, it's nice to not do this via computer. So thank you. The other group of folks that I would actually like to pause and recognize before we get started is the team in HR. Please stand. So we have Myra Ramos, Gloria Rodriguez, Tony Sanchez, and Alyssa Gonzalez. Incredible. This team, again, stepped up over and over and over again over the past couple of weeks in a way that was just remarkable. And your dedication to getting us to this point, we couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. These are our HR folks. I also would like to recognize Mr. J.R. Flores. Please stand up. JR is a part of the team in the office. He is our state and federal grants director and just, again, helped us get to this place with creative but logical, student-centered use of our state and federal funds. And so that's how you helped us make decisions throughout this entire process. And so thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And of course, I would be holistically remiss if I did not acknowledge my chief of staff, Joe Nagella, that's how you say it, Nagella, who has just been absolutely instrumental in helping us get to where we are right now. He is one of the people that behind the curtain sees me at the moments where I'm like, what are we gonna do? So again, thank you so much. You don't get to a place like this on your own and get in a place and space as a budget team as an HR team and as a superintendent office team without this point of collaboration and cooperation from everybody that I just pointed out. So I just wanted to recognize you guys for your late nights and hard work. Okay, so I am actually going to get started, and then I'm going to call Mr. Jaime Lopez up, and then we will turn it over to Mr. Nagella. So the agenda for this evening starts with the budget workshop, which is myself and Jaime Lopez, and then the compensation manual and administrative guidelines will be done by Mr. Nagella. So, overview of how we acquire revenue. And so I want to point out again as we enter into this space how the district gets funding, how we operate, right? So we have talked about multiple times that we have a declining attendance rate. In our district, we have a declining average daily attendance. And so the slide that I have up before you shows the steady decline with a slight bump, but then a projection for next year based upon where we are this year. And obviously then, enrollment also declining, which means that there's less heads to count for attendance. And so we have to acknowledge that with ADA declining and enrollment declining, we as a district have less funds to operate. I also want to acknowledge that there has been no new funding from Austin, from our legislature, since 2019. We all know that the needs are greater for our students. We know that inflation has really kicked in, and we know that we continue to need for our students. And so since 2019, there has been $0 in increase for our students across the state of Texas, not just La Joya ISD. We also receive federal funding, and property taxes and grants all make up the pie chart of all the funds that we have in order to operate. But really, again, wanted to point you to the decline in what is our base funding form. I also want to take us back because since February, I have been having this conversation at almost every single board meeting about where we are in terms of our human capital trends. Knowing that we are declining in enrollment and not really making adjustments in our staff. You look at 2023 where we have declining enrollment and there are very few teacher positions addressed, but yet we have thousands of less students. We also, campus administration, again, very few reductions. Central administration, again, very few reductions. And I just showed you the chart that we've been declining for years. Again, auxiliary staff, very few reductions. And so this is our longitudinal data, and compare that next to the line graph, and here we have a balanced budget issue that we haven't addressed for many, 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 many years. I also want to remind, this is a slide from previous conversations that we've had, but it is also then updated because as we got into it weedier and weedier and weedier with our budget team, what we found very distinctly is that the 23-24 budget, the district used $26.9 million from ESSER 3 to just cover salaries. That is funding that we will not have anymore come September 30th. I also adjusted this slide to get a little bit more granular to say that we started the fiscal year with 540 permanent full-time positions on ESSER. We were also facing an approximate $5.5 million deficit due to the addition of ESSER funding that was used to close the budget gap and in positions that were sitting in position control that could have been filled. Open positions sitting there waiting to be filled. Overstaffed, understaffed positions that were ready to be filled. So when people say, Dr. Sorensen, how did we get to this place where we are so overstaffed? We just had buckets of positions sitting there waiting to be filled without any local controls over how those positions would be used or if there was ample funding to ensure that those positions could actually be funded. So again, refreshing everybody's memory, how we responded this year. We conducted a deep dive of all of our funding streams and FTEs and current programming. We led focus groups to gain additional insight into what's working and what's not working. And I will say that this community stood up and was honest and direct and forthright about the things that have been working and not working across the district. Not only for them as employees, but as parents, as staff members, children, stakeholders, all sides of the community have been met with, for the most part. Very few groups of our employees have not been met with. We asked central office departments to start building their budgets from zero, disregarding prior year spending using an academic return of investment mindset. So if we are spending money, what are we getting for those dollars? Is there growth in student achievement? Is there a close in growth rates for students? Is there a reduction in discipline? Is there an increase in attendance? Things like that as a result of us spending dollars. And we asked our school leaders to have that same mindset based upon their data and multiple data sources to say how you are allocating funding currently at your campus. Is it moving the needle on student achievement? Let's not just continue to fund our campuses in the exact same way. If we're funding it in the exact same way, then things aren't improving for kids. And then 5, our school leaders received initial staffing allocations based upon TASB recommendations, developed their own campus needs assessment, campus improvement plans will come in the fall, and they had to say how they would use their remaining state and federal entitlements. This was new for our campuses because in the past we had just continued to allocate over and over and over. This year we actually gave them an allocation and we said, please align this allocation to the needs of your campus, and those budgets were approved by their assistant superintendents. So the new budgeting process, again, just to capsulize it for everyone, keeps schools at the center of the budgeting process, empowers principals to drive their campus decisions. Our budgeting process was aligned with TASB guidelines and best practices. For example, there were not an increase in class sizes. That's just one example. We ensure transparency around budgeting shortfalls and realities. I have talked about budget, I think, at every single board meeting since I got here, that I have had an opportunity to have the mic. And then we also use, again, the AROI, Academic Return on Investment Framework, to analyze whether the dollars that we are spending are producing results. And that goes for positions as well. How are the positions contributing to progress and to growth for campuses, students, central office, service, all of those things. I also wanted to remind everyone in the room how the program change position criteria was applied. These are the 5 steps that we've talked about before: qualifications, performance, extra duties, position tenure, and seniority. This is how program changes were analyzed once there were people who may have been up for a program change, and where this process was not followed, district policy protects employees and it protects the district. And in some cases where program changes were not applied appropriately, employees received their jobs back. Because that's what we do in La Joya ISD, we lead with integrity. And so I really wanted to point everybody to this slide. As we entered into this season of budget, deep budget work, we were looking at a $28.4 million position control cleanup that we had to spend time on. These were just positions that were sitting in position control, and what that means is essentially a big bucket where those $28.4 million were budgeted for and could have potentially been used and was used in the past. So had we not done this position control cleanup, the closing of the bucket, we would have ended up at a $55.3 million budget shortfall, knowing in addition that $26.9 million of salaries on temporary funding. And that's where we were entering into budget season with the team who sat and worked very hard on how to figure this out and do the least harm that we could to our employees. But I have been saying it since the very first day that I arrived, and again talked at this mic, that we have been overstaffed since 2011. And the district did nothing to respond to that overstaffing, and so we are here where we are today. So again, to just explain to the board and to the public what position control and compensation cleanup means, is that we closed $28.4 million in overstaffed, understaffed, and unallocated positions. Moving forward, new position requests will be requested through the budget office and approved through the superintendent's office. These positions will no longer sit in the hands of human capital and talent development. They will sit in the budget office, and we will always determine as we open new positions, is there actual funding available behind a position request? Is the position needed? Is the position required? What is the academic return of investment for this particular position request? And the budget office, along with the superintendent's office, will make that determination. Allocated position numbers were given to individual overstaffed positions to ensure accuracy of all FTEs. And what this means is that we would have one position number allocated to 3 employees, and it was still overstaffed. So it would be one position number, and it would be for 3 employees, legitimately. We would unpack those position numbers and find 4 employees, 5 employees. And so we had to clean that up and create individual position numbers for FTEs. We aligned the number of work days in our compensation manual in multiple places. There was variance in days for many positions with the same title and the same pay grade. And with the help of human resources, we would go in and we would look at why one employee was, say, a 202 and another was a 187. No rationale. And so we cleaned that up. And we said, if you have a particular position title, your days are the same across that position title. There is no differentiation of days within title. And that allowed for us to clean up the 28.4, and then allowed for us to focus on closing the $26 million budget deficit that we then had to address. Action steps, district overview, this is broad strokes. We cut stipends based upon the TASB recommendations to save $2.4 million. We cut allocated days in compensation guide to save $650,000. We eliminated instructional redundancy and reduced purchase services to save $1.6 million. We increased revenue through the 24-25 extended calendar by 2.8, so we're looking to increase revenue there. And we used remaining ESSER funds for instructional materials and previously approved HVAC projects for 2.5, but that wasn't going to get us there. It's not moving, Blanca. Everyone just wants to keep staring at this slide. So can you drive for me? Sure. Thank you. And so the other thing that we had to do was address the positions on ESSER. Funded positions for school year 23-24, as I've already stated, was 540. The total number of ESSER funded positions that were staffed and filled upon my arrival February 1st was 493. The total number of ESSER-funded positions that we closed for school year 24-25, 98 positions that are staffed and filled, and 47 vacant positions. So there are no impacts to those vacant positions. But 98 positions on ESSER are now closed for 24-25. Next slide. But I want to also call attention to what we did do also. We retained 194 custodians. We retained 25 nurses. We retained 62 police officers. We did move some of them to the SAFE grant as allowable by state grants. We retained 13 security officers, but we moved some of them to the SAFE grant. We retained 29 groundskeepers. We retained 14.5 instructional positions, and we retained 21 secretaries, and retained 35 miscellaneous support positions. And the reason I say miscellaneous is because it was one off here, one off here, one off here. But some were actual instructional positions, like, for example, a fine arts director. Part of the fine arts director was put in ESSER. So for the total number of ESSER-funded positions that we are, as a district, very proudly carrying over is 395 positions. That is 395 employees that were on a grant that is closing, not due to close, that is closing, that we were able to retain. That is employees, boots on the ground. These employees, custodians, nurses, police officers, security, all of that retained through our budget efforts. Next slide. And speaking safety and security, thank you very much, Chief, for your work on this with us. We retained a total staff of 78. 62 police officers, 13 security officers, and 3 staff employees. Staffing levels ensure an ongoing safety and security presence at every campus, as well as day and evening patrols. As you know, we service quite a few square miles in La Joya ISD. Our high schools have multiple police and security officers assigned per campus. Our middle schools have 1 or more police and security officers assigned per campus. Elementary schools have 1 police officer assigned per campus. And we are compliant with HB 3, which is the Texas law that every building must have at least 1. So we are in full compliance with HB 3. So here's where we are, our corrective action steps. We closed a total of 528 positions. But I want to note that the position control cleanup was 195 of those positions. So there is no impact. That is just closing positions that were sitting there waiting to be allocated. So there is no impact to employees there. The number of program change grant ending was 124. And then attrition, meaning retire, resigned, or dismissal. And so we will not refill those positions, is 209. So the number of impacted employees is 175. That's the number I think everybody's been waiting for. The number of impacted employees is 175, and I don't say that lightly. I say that sadly. I say that with a really heavy heart. But we knew for years and years and years and years that we were overstaffed. And so 175 of our wonderful employees, dedicated, hardworking employees, have been impacted. Positions carried over from ESSER, though, and this is a bright side, is 395. And I want everyone to take in that that was 395 positions that could have additionally been impacted. And so again, thank you to the team for helping us pull this together and get this done not only for La Joya ISD, but the community. So where are we for the 24-25 budget? Overall reduction, $44.9 million. This includes the disaster pennies that Mr. Lopez will talk about, includes 395 positions transferred back, includes final ESSER resources encumbered for materials, capital projects, and maybe something else. Total budget deficit that I am going to present to the board tonight is $10.4 million. We could not get there in 1 year. I said that months and months and months ago. We would not get there in 1 year. And so I am proud to say of our reductions, but I am saddened that it impacted any employee. And I am presenting to the board this evening a $10.4 million budget deficit to go into the 24-25 school year. I do want to say out loud in front of everyone that this is an honest budget. There are no funds to cover a budget gap. And this is where we are. While caring for our employees and caring for the community, this is an honest budget of where La Jolla ISD is at this moment. And so again, while I am saddened that employees have been impacted, and we are going to do absolutely everything that we can to bring back as many that we can through vacancies, I am proud that we are at an honest place with our community in terms of our funding. I do want to take a look ahead. I want to continue to align staffing allocations models with TASB recommendations. I will continue to do constant analysis of district need, efficiencies, redundancies, role clarities, and enrollment trends. We're going to have to address the enrollment trends at some point. We are going to continue zero-based budgeting, and we're going to get better at it every year. We're going to continue to use AROI. We will focus on efforts to advance strategic compensation using various models. And we're going to reform special education. And Mr. Lopez will talk a little bit about this when he presents his details. But special education at this point is incredibly overstaffed. Special education receives 100% of its state and federal dollar allocation. 100% of that allocation is given to special education, and we had to pull $14 million out of fund balance to just balance special education. So in all transparency, I have asked TEA to help us in terms of figuring out exactly what is broken with our special education system here in La Jolla ISD. We are over-identifying our children, and we are not supporting them through evidence-based practices, is my guess. And so I don't know that for a fact, though, but I do know that when we have to pull $14 million out of fund balance just to sustain what we currently have, something is not working as it should. And then we will continue to study district programs in schools through the System of Great Schools model, ensuring quality schools, quality program, quality seats for every single child in La Jolla ISD. I did proudly want to again thank the HR team for we had a job fair for our enrollment overages teachers. Super proud of this work. And again, if any of you wanted to speak to it, our principals were thrilled at an opportunity to interview candidates. Candidates were thrilled to have an opportunity to actually meet and decide best fit for them. And so I'm proud to say that as of today, 34 teachers are placed in certified positions out of the 51 impacted. 17 remaining positions, 6 are CTE, and so where's Mr. Flores? Is he here? Thank you, Mr. Flores. He is going to make sure that our CTE teachers land appropriately. We have 4 counselors and 7 content generalist positions to still place who have contracts. And so we, again, have done incredible work over the past couple of weeks on this. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to continue to analyze our current vacancies. That vacancy list grows, and we will have an internal job fair for program change impacts in July. And teachers and staff will receive email invites 1 week prior to the job fair. We want to collect some additional vacancies, and we want to offer those opportunities to our internal candidates first. And so that concludes my presentation, but I will invite my colleague and partner in this work, Mr. Jaime Lopez, the Executive Director for Budget and Finance, up to provide a different grain size of this presentation and fulfill our legal requirements for the budget workshop. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Board President Alvarez, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Dr. Sorensen. We are here to present one last update before we actually adopt the budget on June 26th. And so just so that you guys know what's going on, we've met all legal requirements so far. We had to post a notice of the actual meeting on June 12th, and that happened on Wednesday. It came on the monitor with all the details behind the meeting. We also published all the requirements on our website as well on that same day. So everything that needs to get done got done by the June 12th deadline. So now the next step that we have is June 26th. We actually come in and present the budget to you for adoption. Okay. Okay. So as you guys know, our fiscal year starts on July 1st. So obviously we cannot spend anything before. I mean, we need to adopt a budget before June 30th. And then this is a two-step process where we come in June to adopt our budget, and in September we come to adopt our tax rate. So it's a two-step process. It's always going to be that way. And as we prepare the budget, we need to present it in a way where we show fund and function detail, as stipulated by TEA. And once we adopt our budget on June 26th, we go ahead and update our ERP system to actually show the budget on the software. And then come in July 1st, our staff can come and actually use that budget. And this slide pretty much tells you that we are required to show the budget detail for the general fund, the food service fund, the internal service fund, but everything else is optional. So we actually go above and beyond by showing you other different funds like the special revenue and the internal service funds. Okay, so governmental funds, they're broken up into three major areas: the general fund, the special revenue funds, and the debt service fund. General fund is pretty much everything that we need to run the operation. Debt service fund, that's where we actually have all the transactions for our bonds. And the special revenue funds is all our 200 funds where we actually have most of our federal funds. So that's kind of just a high level view of the different type of categories of funds that we have. And then on the proprietary fund side, we have the enterprise funds and internal service funds. And as the name pretty much explains, we have a unique fund number for all the different funds. We have a unique fund number for the Howling Trails Golf Course. We have a fund number for the Sports Learning Complex. On the internal service funds, we have funds for the print shop, for the self-insured insurance fund, the workers' compensation plan, the unemployment fund. So these are all unique funds that we have within our ledger. Okay, so I'll go ahead and stop and show this slide here so you guys can see the numbers. Like Dr. Sorensen was talking about a little while ago, we are showing a deficit budget of $10.46 million. And as you can see, we highlight each individual fund with revenues and expenditures. And the biggest issues that we have right now is that the special education fund cannot run independently. Also, we have issues with the health insurance fund, where the health insurance fund cannot run independently. We don't generate enough revenues to cover the expenses of all the medical claims that we have. We also have the athletics fund, where we have run on a deficit because they don't actually produce enough revenue to operate their expenses, but we all know that they don't produce that type of revenue. So I just want to kind of know if there's any questions about this slide itself.
Any of our board members have any questions for Mr. Lopez?
And this is in line with what Dr. Sorensen was saying.
No questions? You can proceed, Mr. Lopez.
Okay. So then as we look into next year, to kind of mitigate some of these risks, we have some opportunities that we looked into. I know that this year we had an issue with our SHARS reporting, where we actually left out $1.5 million in allowable transportation costs. That could have helped us kind of, that would have been more revenue to come in. So next year we're actually going to be tracking that more. Also, we're going to manage the IDEA B formula to kind of track that, because recently we had to pay back $726,000 back to TEA, money that was ours, and we had to send it back to them. So that's another thing we need to kind of really focus on. And as Dr. Sorensen stated, right now the budget plan has 417 extra employees within the special education fund. That's the state fund. If I go back to the slide, it's the 192 fund. So the 192 fund has 417 people baked into that number. Okay. And then also, like many districts across the state, we're all dealing with negative impact of the 2010 OIG audit. That's affecting SHARS by reducing the RMTS percentage. So that's something that I know it's affecting all the state, and hopefully things change and more revenue might come in through the SHARS. So those are some of the topics that we're looking into on the special ed side. And then to kind of address the health insurance fund, I know that currently we're not baking anything into the insurance fund with increase in premiums. So nothing's going up on the premium side of the employee. But I know this past year we did stuff on the back end to kind of say, hey, you're not paying more upfront, but if you do get sick, things might be a little bit more costly, or we expect you to put more into the actual bucket than the district. And we're doing that because, as you saw in the previous slide, we are running in a deficit for that specific fund.
But I just want to clarify there that this year there is no change to employee benefits or employee contributions.
Yes.
So I want everyone to hear that clearly. We did an analysis. We found that is a space in our budget where we are struggling. But this year, we did not make any changes to that for the 24-25 school year. Thank you.
Okay. So then the next few slides, we're just basically taking the same data, but on the governmental fund side. And I'll just scroll through the slides, but bottom line is that our funding is coming, a large part of it's coming from the state, right? It's through the revenue formula from the state. When we actually allocate the resources, we are spending a large majority of it on student instruction, right? So that hasn't changed. So we kind of cut up the data into different forms, but at the end of the day, that's the story. That the biggest chunk of our revenue comes from the state, and our biggest investment is in our kids through Function 11 and 12 and 13, where we're actually giving that back to the students. Okay. And then when we talk about actual expenses by object code, as Dr. Sorensen said, our biggest expense is payroll cost, right? Everything attributed to payroll costs. So those are kind of takeaways from all the data, that our biggest chunk of revenues come from the state, and our expenses are, 80% of it, 75% of it is payroll costs. But we are investing back into the employees by function code. I'll skip through these, it's the same data. And then going back to what Dr. Sorensen was talking about, La Jolla ISD, unfortunately, we're not the behemoth we were 10 years ago as far as ADA goes. We have no wiggle room with enrollment going down. So baked into that 20,987, we have your traditional ADA, you have your optional flexible school day program, you have the ATSE program, and you have the half ADA for the pre-K kids. So those are all the different buckets that come up to the 20,987. So we still see our outlook would be kind of flat with still kind of a downside risk. That's what we think ADA might go next year. And then on the next slide, I know that Dr. Sorensen probably already provided this to you, but this is coming from an outside agency, independent agency, and this is more related to our bonds and how we can go out there to get more lending through bonds next year, or if we were to decide to do it in the future. But this independent agency went ahead and downgraded us from an A+ rating to an A. They gave us a negative outlook, and that's pretty much because of the things that we just spoke about, right? They feel that we have stagnant revenue and that we're overstaffed. And that's coming from an independent agency. So I just wanted to...
Mr. Lopez, can you shine the bright side of the end of that report in what S&P Global commented at the end of that report and share that not only with the board but the public?
They pretty much say that there's a negative outlook, but if things change, right, that we could always be a positive outlook if we address the issues. So there's the opportunity to make the change.
The end of the report, I'm sorry, the end of the report really bulleted down to two statements. There's either a positive outlook where the district makes a change and our rating increases, or the district doesn't make a change. And not only does our rating stay at the A, but has potential to decrease even beyond the A. So even an outside independent agency was very clear with us that the sense of urgency to change, and it will be evaluated, they said, within 2 years?
2 years, yes.
2 years? So we have 2 years. That this outside agency said to us, while we are lowering it now, here is your opportunity to fix it. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Vice President Chavez, do you have a question?
You answered one of them about the next time we would be audited. And then another one, I guess, was in sense of the two options, overstaffing was one of the reasons you said that we have this decrease in rating and then the revenue. For the overstaffing one, do we have to completely fix the overstaffing to improve our rating, or just be like at a certain percentage better than what we are now?
I think, in my opinion, it'd be something where we know you have your revenue side of the ledger and you have the expense side of the ledger. The revenue side is very difficult to control, right? Because the ADA, kids come and don't go. Will come to school or not come to school. But the expense side, we can control more. And it's our job to kind of marry those two numbers that we always balance out. So that's kind of that should be our strategy.
So is the goal to then be to be not overstaffed at all then, to be perfectly aligned with TASB, that will get us to be our next, to get the A+.
The goal ultimately is to have a balanced budget where we not only are balanced, but able to continue to put funds in fund balance and continue to grow our reserves. That's one goal. The other goal is to have money to do the things that our community wants us to do in terms of improvement of facilities, improvement of athletic spaces, improvement in programming. And so while our funds are really tight, our ability to do the things to improve ourselves as a district becomes tougher. So it's not even just about overstaffing, it's about also building up the reserves.
Okay, thank you.
And this last slide, this is a first report requirement to discuss property values with the Board of Trustees. And I know it's kind of a busy slide, but the kind of the takeaway here is just that property values are going up. They've been going up for years. And that's important because the property value is what actually helps us create our tax rate. So we're anticipating property values to go up and tax compression to be more tax compression. But the thing is, currently we're at the floor, and with increased property values, we'll be at the floor again. And the reason why that's important is because That's what the state uses to kind of draw a line in the sand as far as what La Jolla ISD should contribute into the Tier 1 revenue. Because as I stated before, when we talk about ADA and the different blends of kids that we have, they create this Tier 1 bucket of revenue. And then this is what they use, the state uses to say, okay, this is the size of your bucket. But then with these numbers, they decide, okay, this is how much La Jolla has to contribute into the bucket, and the balance is from the state. So that these numbers are the way the state says, okay, this is where you come into play and you pick up that cost. So that's why these numbers are important. So right now we have preliminary numbers, and as you guys can see, the total tax rate, the 1.055533, that already assumes the disaster pennies. And like we said before, disaster pennies will bring in approximately $5 million. $1 million coming from local tax revenue, and about $4 million coming from the state. And that's something we have to focus on in September. But again, just the takeaway here is that property values are going up. We anticipate them to go up. We don't anticipate the compression to be a lot. But that's the number that the state is going to use to to calculate the local share of the Tier 1 revenue.
So then the higher the value of the property, the more we had to contribute?
The higher it goes, they'll compress the tax rate, but this time it won't compress that much because the compression is, the room for compression is very small. So they'll take that number and then they'll multiply it times the total property values, and that'll be the number that we have to pitch in.
Okay.
And then whatever's left on that whole bucket comes from the state.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So that's kind of the last slide I had. But I also want to, I know when we were recognizing people, I also want to recognize Rolando Herrera. He's also part of our finance team who helped out with the budget process. So,
Mr. Lopez, who's Mr. Rolando Herrera? Tell him to stand up. Is he here? Stand up, great.
He is my personal budget guide in the superintendent's office. He manages my budget in the superintendent's office, and so thank you so much for all you do for my office. I really appreciate you.
Any other questions or concerns?
Members of the board, do we have any questions for Mr. Lopez?
No questions.
Or for the superintendent? Okay, we may proceed. Dr. Sorensen.
I'd like to call Mr. Nagella up to talk about the compensation manual and administrative guidelines for 24-25. While we will not be asking the board to vote on the comprehensive budget until the 26th, we are going to be asking the board to vote on the compensation manual and administrative guidelines this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Mr. Board President, Board of Managers, I'm grateful to be with you this evening to present our compensation manual adjustments and staffing guidelines for this for the coming school year. So I'm going to be walking through some state, regional, and local comparisons of our teacher compensation schedule. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about our district staffing principles. These are guideposts that we've been using in decision-making around budget, around staffing, many of which showed up in both Dr. Sorensen's presentation earlier as well as Mr. Lopez's presentation. Excuse me. After that, we're going to go into what the adjustments were made in our compensation manual itself, all informed by the implementation of Texas Association of School Board recommendations. So I'll talk a little bit about adjustments to allocation of days, adjustments to the stipends we've made, as well as campus staffing guidelines. So in this first size, this is sort of a large grain size of what our teacher salary schedule looks like compared to the minimums set by the state. And as you can see, across the board at every step of our scale, we are compensating teachers well above the state minimum. Just to call out as an example, our first year teachers are paid and on average $21,340 more than the minimum requires in the state of Texas. So here's a slightly different grain size, looking at our district compared to the region. Oh, thank you. Looking at our district compared to the region. So on the right, you can see that line graph. That blue line represents La Jolla ISD. And you see at each of the 5-year steps, our compensation is competitive relative to districts and what teachers are compensated in the region. At this grain size, we're looking at the district versus what actual districts pay across the state. And again, in this category, La Jolla ISD teachers are compensated at competitive levels and in fact exceed salary markers at each of these 5-year salary step increments. And in this slide, this is a synthesis of what La Jolla ISD compensation schedule looks like relative to district, region, and state. And again, looking at the blue line represents La Jolla ISD, and our compensation rates are again competitive and often exceed what teachers are paid across the state and within our region. So in this next slide, we're going to talk just a bit about our district staffing principles, right? So in all of our decision makings, we have these staffing principles at the table, right? Are our decisions grounded in driving student outcomes, right? What does role clarity look like when we're making decisions about whether or not a position should close, right? Do we know what people are doing on a daily basis, right? Is it clear in the job responsibilities and in their job description, and is that what in fact happens? We are aligning with research and best practices. So we've already looked at slides from a source partner that we rely on heavily, and that's the Texas Association of School Boards. We look for finding efficiencies and cost savings within the organization. We look for eliminating redundancy and duplication of efforts. So where in the organization are we doing tasks, duplicatively, right? Where can we discard ineffective programming? So that gets into the academic return on investment that Dr. Sorensen brought up in her presentation. Are we in fact getting student outcomes from the programming, from the resources that we're putting in place for our students? And then finally, retirements and sunsetting. How are we planning for the long term? How are we planning for the short term? How are we making decisions when, for example, grants expire, right? So moving forward with our compensation manual, we considered TASB recommendations for our action steps, okay, grounding ourselves in the district staffing principle 3. A statewide salary study showed that the need for the development of a pay grade 10 for senior district leadership. The guidance showed that there was a need to adjust allocated days for certain central office and campus positions. Guidance showed a need to align stipend pay to best practices. And in our staffing decisions around campuses, it was grounded in what TASB recommends are the appropriate staff to student enrollment ratios. So let's first talk about the adjustments to allocated days. Days were adjusted for certain central office and school-based staff. The goal was to increase internal equity and consistency between the positions. We were going to align allocated days with the realities and the demands of positions, and we were going to ensure fiscal responsibility across departments and positions. The adjustments in allocated days that we made aggregated into an estimated $650,000 savings. Here are some examples of the allocated days adjustments. So here's a space where we standardize the number of days for consistency within positions having similar roles and responsibilities. So to add on to the example that Dr. Sorensen gave in her presentation, attendance clerks are now standardized to 193 days. Whereas in the previous allocations, you had some that were 193, then you had some that were 202, and then you had some that worked different days. So now all attendance clerks are 193 days. Middle school assistant principals are now standardized at 207 days. High school assistant principals are now standardized to 212 days. We made adjustments to secretaries where applicable to mirror days of their direct reports, right? So meaning the director of X department has a secretary, the number of days that a director has matches the number of days that the secretary has. We allocated days increased for demands of the position. So one example is our emergency management coordinator. We adjusted that to 240 days. That was appropriate for the roles and responsibilities of the position, as well as consistency with the chief of police. Our special education service providers, we aligned, and some, in fact, led to an increase. Allocated days decreased for efficiencies and consistencies within position types. So clerk positions to 226 days, and where varying days for the same position previously existed. So now we're going to get into the adjustments to stipends. Stipends are adjusted across the majority of positions based on needs of the organization, the district's financial realities, as well as TASB guidance. Stipend levels continue to make La Joya ISD regionally competitive. Aligning stipends to best practices aggregated into an estimated $2.4 million in savings. And what I want to highlight before I get into the examples was most of that money saved came from additional days that were attached to the stipend provided for that particular role. So we grounded ourselves in TASB stipend guidance, and here they are. Here are the do's and the don'ts. I'm going to focus here on just the don'ts. So we were laser focused on whether or not we were paying for certifications, licenses, or credentials required to perform the job. Did we pay folks for extra days, those additional duty days? Did we differentiate stipends as boys or girls? Did we pay stipends for work that is directly related to the person's job? Did we pay flat rate stipends to non-exempt staff? And did we bundle coaching stipends?
So again, Mr. Nagella, can I just pause here for 1 second? And I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to again lift up that these are the don'ts. These are the don'ts. Clearly guiding our work from TASB around the don'ts, the do not do's. And so again, we aligned ourselves with TASB recommendations in this particular area, and also want to lift up, there are plenty of spaces within the compensation manual where we increased areas that Mr. Nagella is going to talk about. So it is not just about the decreasing, but it is about standardizing the stipend to the responsibility. Please note that stipends are not a part of people's salaries. I want to say that. Stipends are not a part of people's salaries. And so the way that the district historically has paid stipends is prior to the season even ending. People will get their stipend. And so we are going to change that, where stipends will be paid for work completed in the first semester. For example, a sport that is within the first semester, they will get a check after they have completed their season. And on the other side will be spring compensation. It will not be on every single check. It is not a part of the salary. There is an actual role and responsibility that stipends are paid for. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll get into some examples of stipends adjustments that were made. And again, to reinforce what Dr. Sorensen just said, it wasn't just decreases, it wasn't just removals, but we increased stipends in areas as per TASB guidance, as per our internal values and need for equity across positions. So one stipend adjustment we made, we sunsetted additional allocated days as a stipend practice. Stipends adjusted, we made stipends adjusted to better ensure internal equity. Some examples to include, we increased the master's degree in content area for all campuses to $2,000, while we sunsetted master's degrees in content areas and teach at comprehensive high schools. So before, if you had a master's degree and taught one of our comprehensive high schools, your stipend was higher than if you taught at one of our early college high schools, for example. So we standardized to one stipend of $2,000 for having a master's degree at a high school campus.
Mr. Nagella, can you provide clarity on how often they're given this stipend?
Annually. Yes.
Thank you.
The stipend's given annually. Stipends removed due to duplication, redundancy, and expired need. So some examples there were principal coach. So under our new organizational model that will open for the next school year, we will have executive directors of school leadership who will be the coaches of principals. That particular stipend is no longer needed. Our Texas Reading Academy stipend has been sunsetted as well, knowing that the requirements, while the requirements of teachers attending the Texas Reading Academy continue, the implementation of the academies has now been several years, and the need for the stipend no longer exists. Grades 9 and 12 science teachers with science composite certifications was also removed. Again, that goes back to paying folks for certifications that they already need for the position and the work that they're going to do.
Mr. Nagella, can you also clarify that science teachers, though, this is just for the science composite certification?
Correct. So this is just for high school science teachers who possess a science composite certification. And so up until this year, they received a $500 stipend annually just for holding that particular certificate.
And a stipend for being a science teacher?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did we have a previous shortage on science teachers? Is that the reason we had a stipend?
Yes, which is why they will continue to receive the science stipend. The science stipend stays in place. The math and science stipend remains. What doesn't remain is for the science composite.
So stipends sunsetted due to lack of results for students and being directly related to the position. So up until this year, our advanced placement teachers receive $50 for every student who earns a 3, 4, or 5 on the advanced placement exam. Our advanced placement teachers, their goal, their entire purpose is to get students to pass our advanced placement exams and earn college credit. Stipends decreased based on position demands. An example is our campus technologist stipend decreased from $1,500 per year to $1,000 per year. Stipends adjusted as a value statement. Teachers' attendance at after hours and off-contract professional development increased to $210 for a 6-hour session. Previously, teacher attendance at PD did not equate to a $35 an hour district hourly rate. We need teachers to attend professional development. Teachers want to attend a professional development, and if we're going to be a continuous learning organization, we need them at professional development, and they should be compensated fairly.
And historically, Mr. Nagella, can you clarify what they were compensated for a full day of professional development?
Don't have that. Under $100 for the day.
$75.
$75 for the day.
For an entire day of professional learning. And so we increase this to respect our teachers and their professionalism and their dedication to continued learning.
We increased the stipend for our mariachi directors to $10,000 per year.
What was their stipend before?
Their stipend prior was $7,500?
I believe it was $7,500.
$7,500 per year.
And this was a place where, again, as a value statement, our mariachi directors are working tirelessly, the same as our football coordinators. And so we wanted to lift up fine arts in the same way that we lift up athletics in our district.
And then again, as a value statement, we adjusted teacher department chair and teacher lead stipends, and we increased and standardized them across contents and grade levels. So next we'll move into our staffing allocations. So as we rolled out our campus budget board books, we provided campuses with their staffing allocations, all grounded in TASB guidelines. I want to note here that we did not make any adjustments to class sizes. Class sizes remain aligned to TASB, and they remain in place as they were this year. At our elementary, at our elementary level, it's one teacher. At our earliest grade levels, it's one teacher for every 22 students. And then at our upper grade levels, it's one teacher for every 25 students. Here's a screenshot of our middle school guidelines, where our class sizes, again, are one teacher for every 25 students. And then our high school guidelines. So some takeaways for the adjustments that we've made in both our compensation manual as well as our staffing guides. We added district staffing principles to guide decision-making, to provide transparency in decision-making. We implemented decisions based on TASB recommendations. Our salaries are competitive compared with the state and regional averages. While no employee raises were factored for school year 24-25, we anticipate having good news to share for our employees with the board at our next meeting, so please stay tuned. We updated our manual to reflect current position titles. We made adjustments to stipends and sunsetting of additional days by position. Again, that resulted in an estimated $3 million in savings. We aligned the number of work days throughout the compensation manual and variance in days for positions with the same title or the same grade. And our campus staffing allocations were aligned to best practices. And the last thing I'll share is that for the first time, we're very proud to be able to post for public and employee consumption a compensation plan inclusive of our stipend practices as well as our salary schedules. So we look forward to being able to post this online, given board approval this evening. And with that, questions?
Any questions for Joseph at this time?
Yes, so to confirm, there's never been a compensation plan that was available to the public before?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
A compensation plan or a compensation manual was not available before, is that correct?
It was not published online, correct.
Congratulations to you for doing that and your team.
Thank you, sir.
And also not, when published, not published with stipends, so that everyone across the district can have a full understanding of the level of stipend funding that employees are getting, so that it is transparent and honest across the district, as conversations may ensue around stipends and the change from stipends plus days to just stipends. We thought it was fair and appropriate to be transparent with all aspects of our compensation plan in the compensation manual. So thank you very much. At this point, I also really want to thank Blanca and the team for working very hard to put this together with not much notice. And so hoping that later the board can take action on this and we can publish this and get this out to our employees if the board deems it appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Nagella.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any further questions for Joseph? Like I said, none. Okay, seeing that there's none, then the following item is agenda item 6 is item number 2, presentation to update board policy GKD exhibit, rental agreement and rental fees. Mr. Garza or Ms. Pettis?
Both.
Both. Tag team.
So at this time, I would like to just pause for a moment, and although I'm not making my full announcements public, I do want to introduce Ms. Claudia Gomez Perez as soon-to-be the former principal of Jimmy Carter Early College High School, now moving into the role of our Chief of Student, Family, and Community Engagement. So welcome.
Congratulations. Mr. Garza, before we start, and I apologize for this, but earlier I said that we had a board member that showed up. I failed to mention her name, Jessica Ochoa, just for the record. You may proceed.
Good evening, Mr. President Alvarez, Madam Superintendent, board members, administration, and community. We come before you to present and really update only the board policy GKD exhibit. This deals with the rental agreement and rental fees. Currently, within our policy, if you were to look online, we do have the legal, we have the local, but there's very minimal and no transparency in regards to any possible fees that might be charged or not charged to the community and or any of wishing to rent our facilities. Currently, what you see before you is what's actually on the policy itself, on the exhibit. So what we're asking today, or what we're doing today, is updating the policy to be more transparent and to have the fees more visible. Also, what is required. First and foremost, as we see there, what is the process? We require the same requirement that we require from any vendor that does business with the district. We require, and we work with our risk management, a general liability, and we have there the amounts that are required in order to conduct any kind of business within our rental facilities at La Jolla ISD.
The update is not necessarily on the board policy. It's on the exhibit that we currently don't have posted. And so we want to make sure that we bring you the exhibit that goes along with the board policy so that the public can see what are the requirements for the rental and then what are the fees that we have for each of the facilities that we have within our district. And so the update is to the exhibit, the agreement itself, not to the policy that we have, that we currently have. There were some recommendations on the general liability insurance, and so those are the things that we want to make sure that the public knows that when it got stuck, that when they see it, these are the things that they need to make sure that they have whenever they're coming in. And so once we see that they have the proof of insurance and they know how much they have to bring in, together with the business office, this is what they require of any other vendor. And so we're not doing anything that business office is already doing with this. Along with that update, we had the actual price of the facilities. And so that was sometimes unclear how much we charge for some of our facilities. Some of their facilities were not listed in a form that we had before. And so now we're including all of the facilities that we have within the district and how much each of those or what are the fees for each of those facilities. The classifications have been there before, depends on the group that wants to rent the facilities, and that determines the classification, whether they're nonprofit, for-profit, they're part of the community, not, and so those kinds of things that we'll look at what classification they fall under, so that we can determine what are the fees that we will have. And so once that is done, then we will take it back, and for approval, all the individuals will sign and the agreement will be put out for them to use our facilities. We are looking to just make sure that we take care of our facilities, that if they need, if we need to take care of something, that we have the funds to be able to take care of these facilities. And so that's really what we want to make sure, that we all understand that these fees are to maintain what we currently have. Questions, comments, concerns?
In terms of availability for these facilities, do they just, would the community reach out to yourself, Mr.
We are
Victor?
going to post online. More than likely, what we're wanting to expedite is, this is the form, this is our Google form type of thing. And so the request is going to go obviously to the campus also, right? Because we need to make sure that if they want to rent the gym, that's going to be available then to us. And so it's going to be teamwork, wanting to, for us to make sure that the facility is available, and then can we lease it, and then with the type of classification. And so it'll be us working together with business office and also the campus, so that we are not overbooking, or if they're using it, then it's going to be communication among all of us.
Thank you.
Ms. Pettis, it would be safe to say that when we do have them sign an agreement, that we have conditions like no alcoholic beverages and things like that.
And
I wasn't sure if there was something like this, if maybe I wasn't seeing.
If on the first part, there are some guidelines.
I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So under the insurance, right, in the same section, there's 1, 2, and then there's a few more that are there of some of those guidelines that we have in place. Yes.
This is really good. This is really good.
Questions?
How often do our facilities get rented out? I'm curious.
It depends.
Yeah.
Mr. Adame said that nobody has ever wanted to use the Performing Arts Center other than for a wedding. So I was like, wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it depends on whether it's a gym at the elementary, if it's a cafeteria, and so it varies, but it's not very often.
Okay.
We just want to make sure we have it in place in case somebody wants to get married
this is
at
good.
the Performing Arts Center.
I would assume if there was a playoff game, just like when we experienced playing at Laredo, that Coach Garcia, you would probably be involved in the negotiating of a contract and security.
And that is correct.
Fee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Alvarez. On that one is more of an understanding UIL sanctioned activities within the valley. So we do have some rates for the schools, but everything will definitely entail all the costs that the district will incur and so forth. Going back to your answer, the last time we rented our stadium was about 2007, 2008, one of the soccer games that we had. And actually the fee that you see there, that was the fee that we rented that facility for that type of venue. And there was a lot of wear and tear also.
Yeah, that's certainly a concern. Members of the board, do we have any questions for Mr. Garza, Ms. Pettis at this time? Seeing that there's none, thank you very much. Great presentation. Before we move forward, I have one more thing to say. Joseph, I failed to ask you, on the employee compensation plan, is it available in Spanish? Or will it be available in Spanish? Great, thank you. Great, thank you, I appreciate that.
President Alvarez, can I have a moment of latitude?
Of course.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Sorensen?
First, I would also like to thank Mr. Garcia for his assistance with the rental agreement. Working with facilities is essentially, it's imperative as we think about our facilities and usage, and so thank you very much for that as well. But I would also be remiss, and again, I'm not making formal announcements about cabinet just yet, but we do have some other folks, new folks in the audience. So I would like Ms. Mirjette Crespo to please stand. Jet Crespo is our new Chief Business, Finance, and Administrative Services Officer. So thank you for being here. I would also like Dr. Angela Gonzalez to please stand. Dr. Gonzalez is our Deputy Chief of Human Capital and Talent Development. We will do a full reveal at the meeting on the 26th, but did want to acknowledge that we had some new cabinet members in the House. And so I just wanted to acknowledge your presence and welcome you to La Jolla ISD.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Before we move to agenda item number 7, I know we didn't have any questions for those who did a presentation, but I do want to take this opportunity to again, echo the comments or the remarks that Dr. Sorensen said. The briefing that you gave us on the superintendent's report, I know there was a lot of hard work, and I appreciate everyone that's here and remained here that assisted Dr. Sorensen with this report. Great news, so thank you for that. I know it wasn't an easy task, both for the IT, our folks here with finance, and of course our HR group, so thank you for all your hard work. We may be able to move on to consent item number 7. It's agenda item number 7. Do I have a motion for consent agenda items?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Majority rules approved. Thank you. Let's see, what do we got next? We have closed session. What's that? Okay. So the next item on the agenda, we will be going into a closed session, under Section Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.075, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.089. The time is 7:59 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back from closed session. It's 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. Next item under, next item under action and discussion items is, what is it? Action and authority to negotiate and award contract with firm offering best value to school districts based on published criteria and evaluation of the independent auditor services, RFQ number 2024-59. Mr. Lopez?
Hello, once again. So we're coming to you because we have the purpose of the solicitation is to secure a source in order to establish competitive pricing for district-wide audit services. So we need an auditor to come in and start the financial audit for this fiscal year end. So we're asking to go ahead and negotiate with the vendor.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Lopez?
Mr. Lopez, can you just clarify that this is not a forensic audit?
Yes, this is
please
not.
Just clarify
this is not
the
a
purpose of the audit.
This is an actual audit just for our our standard financial statements.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the clarification. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Let's get to the next item. The following item is number 2, approval of license agreement with SkySafe for the use of 40 square feet of rooftop space for sensor network pilot at what's the name of that? Fordyce Elementary and Alejandro H. Science Performing Arts Center sites. Mr. Lopez?
Yes, so we're just coming to you because this is a project that Orlando Herrera worked on and trying to get $800 a month per campus in revenue to support this project. They're placing antennas on top of these buildings to monitor drone activity. So it's something that's supported by the government as well. So they're trying to do a pilot program.
And these could be removed at any time, right? Is there a contract or is there an agreement for how long we need to have?
It was reviewed by legal, I believe.
It's a 1-year contract.
It's a 1-year contract, right, Philip?
I think it's a multiple year, but can it be ended each year?
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification. Do we have any questions for Mr. Lopez regarding this particular agenda item? Seeing that there's none, can I have a motion?
I move to approve this item.
Can I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous.
I'd like to say I abstain from this vote.
We do have an abstain from our Vice President, Anita Chavez. Still passes unanimously. Next item, the following item is number 3, approval to update board policy GKD, exhibit rental agreement process and rental fees. Mr. Garza or Ms. Pettis?
I think they left. So I will recommend to approve the update to board policy GKD, the exhibit. It was the rental agreement process and rental fees as presented by both Mr. Garza and Ms. Claudia Gomez Perez.
Do we have any questions for Dr. Sorensen in this particular agenda item?
No.
Seeing that there's none, do I have a motion?
I move to approve item number 3.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it, it passes. Next item is number 4, consider adoption of district compensation manual under policy DEA for the 2024-2025 school year. Joseph?
We're just recommending the approval of the district compensation manual under policy DEA for the 24-25 school year. If there are any additional questions for Mr. Nagella.
Do you have any questions for Joseph
No.
regarding the manual? Great. Seeing that there's none, can I have a motion?
I'd like to move to approve item number 4.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, thank you, Joseph. Next item is number 5, consider and take action to approve the non-renewal of employee on term contracts. This item may be discussed, we already discussed it in closed session. According to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074 and 551.071. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item number 5.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next item, we are not going to take action on item number 6 nor on item number 7. Next item that we will be taking into consideration is, do I hear a motion for agenda item number, it'd be, let me see, let me make sure I get this
Number
right. Yeah, let me get number 8. Here it is. Do I hear a motion for agenda number 8 regarding the level 3 grievance filed by Ms. Sylvia Zapata?
I move that we determine that we have stopped, looked, and listened, and that we take no further action on this matter.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 9. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to go straight to the calendar. Next item on the agenda are calendar items A through D. Central, let me go ahead and read those out. Central Administration alternate summer working hours, May 27th through August 2nd, 2024, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday, Friday off. Central Administration offices will be closed for vacation July 1st through July 12th, 2024. June 26, 2024, regular board meeting. July 31st, 2024, regular board meeting.
President Alvarez, can I add something here?
Sure, yes, sir.
That on June 26th, the regular board meeting, we will be hosting the budget board meeting at 5:30 prior to the regularly scheduled board meeting at 6. And so I wanted that noted for the record, that we are making public that that board meeting regarding the budget will take place before the regular board meeting, starting at 5:30, and then the regular board meeting will be at 6.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Before we move on to closing remarks by Dr. Sorensen, does anybody on the board have anything to say before we close? Dr. Sorensen, would you like to say anything before we close?
Absolutely. And so once again, just recapping my thanks for everyone who really hunkered down and did some great work to land where we landed in terms of our budget. I look forward to further conversation over the next couple of weeks and the passage of the 24-25 budget. But I also do want to always say publicly that it is with a heavy heart that we had to present where we are as a district and move forward with a deficit budget, but also that there were impacted employees that were hurt in this process along the way. Regardless of the transparency and the numerous times that we've had these conversations, at the end of every single one of these conversations is an employee and is a livelihood and is a family. And so none of these decisions were taken lightly. None of these decisions do not go unnoticed, that the hardship that the community will face. And again, just want to express our concern and intent to employ our employees who were impacted through the vacancies that we acquire over the next month or so. And we will have a job fair for those who were displaced.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. I would like to also just make reference that it isn't easy, and I appreciate the hard work that you've put in and your staff and many of those that have stuck around or have worked countless hours to make sure that this district continues to shine. Again, we all know that it's, at the end of the day, it's what's in the betterment of our students. So I appreciate you and all your team who have done an amazing work in the last 5 months that we've been here. Members of the board, do I have any remarks before we close? Seeing that we do not have any, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn this meeting at 10:10 p.m.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. It is 10:10.